We are live. Welcome to this live stream. So, a question that one of my clients asked, she is also a coach, and it was so in depth. I thought I'm gonna have to either do a video about it or literally just write a full essay. So, I may do both. So, I am doing a video about it, and then I may just make this into a blog post where you guys can follow the steps. Excuse me, because suddenly I go live and the screen changes. You can see all the mess at the back now. Now, I do apologise in advance, or just update you that there will be noise in the background. I live at home. Obviously, I work from home. We all have to pretty much be at home now. So there will be noise in the background. And this phone is pretty good. It picks up noise from the outside pretty clearly. And I only found that out when I re-watched my previous live stream. So apologies in advance. This is just how it's going to be. I've got a family at home, obviously. So they won't stay quiet. Not for nothing, more than maybe 2 minutes. So let's go straight into the topic. Now, I am going to look at my notes because there's lots and lots of steps. Again, when this becomes a blog post, it'll be much easier for you to follow the steps. But the reason why I'm doing this as well is so you can kind of like feel the emotion around it as well and how I'm going to take you through it. Now, overcoming the grief of or loss of a loved one is so important, okay? A lot of people say, now this was me, okay? Now I'm somebody who's actually lived this. I lost my dad when I was 14 years of age. I lost my mom when I was about 27 years of age. I kind of lost count of my age when I was after 25. So I was about 27, 28 years. No, I was 27 actually. Maybe 26, I don't know. But anyway, pretty young at that age, 27, 26, I thought I would have my mum. And she wasn't at the age where people do live beyond that age. She was about 64, 65. So, it was very unexpected. We left the night before, and the next day we left. We were all there. All the siblings were there. All her kids were there, pretty much, apart from one that lives in Birmingham. And the next day we found her lifeless in her bed in the morning. So processing all of that is something I've done, and I help my clients do the same. Now, not saying that my grief is going to be the same as my clients' grief. Every single human, all of my siblings, although we experience the same situation of leaving our mum the night before and then seeing her, lifeless in the bed the next morning, we're all going to process it in different ways. Now, this is just a step-by-step process, why it's important to, and there's a lot of perceptions we have to help our clients overcome. A big one being that, you never get over it. You always have to get used to the loved one being not around anymore. Now, that is a very, very disempowering place to be at, because every year you would probably remember that loved one. Those negative emotions that are trapped, the sadness, are going to show up every single year. They may even dictate your life on how you're going to decide and protect your kids and whatever else, depending on what's happened. So reprocessing the loss in a healthy way is needed. Otherwise, like I said, you will do things that are not even aligned to your highest values. And I've done that as well. The first year I lost my mum, actually the first 2 years of losing my mum, by then you would think I've overcome or in a healthy way. But I wasn't. I was very vulnerable. I was unable to even judge character the first 2 years. Literally, I was in a place where I was deciding to do things because I wanted to make up for the loss of my mom. Yeah, I was making friends, and being around friends that way somewhat manipulated me. I only found that out later on. But it was because, I need to do this for my mom. I Sadqa Jari is something we say in our language. Is to do, every time I do something good, it helps my mom, because she's passed away now, and obviously I'm a child. So, I would be just this blind person who was just trying to do everything because I hadn't healed. I wanted to build this orphanage, and I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do that. So things were all sprouting out not because of my values, our highest values. It was because I hadn't overcome the loss of my mum, right? And decisions were being made, things were getting done just because of that. However, there's nothing wrong with opening an orphanage, and that is something I really want to do. But at that time, it was like I needed to do it yesterday. I want to do it now. There was a lot of heedlessness around that as well, and then a lot of negative things that I was doing in the sense that I was rushing it and I was arguing about it. You know, there was just lots of unresolved emotions in the air, and that went on for a good 2 years. Okay, and there was times when I would be talking to people and just you know, constantly just to get some comfort. That if only I knew what I knew today, I would have done all that. So let's dive into it. And everyone's got a different, like I said, response to this or reaction to losses. And you've got to meet the client where they're at every single stage with their own perception. Again, this is just a step-by-step process. You may have to do this process a few times. You may have to just do it once or twice. It all depends on the person, how they are really perceiving this loss. If you're a coach, you already know you do pick up a lot of negative emotions anyway. If your mum or your generation hasn't resolved emotions, so we are born, we've already got somewhat of an emotional cup filling up already. Okay, so when we experience negative events in life, and they don't have to be huge, they could just be little events. And if we haven't processed them at the time, and I'm talking about minor events here, so I'm just going to give a little bit of background. If a child's told to shut up and stop crying or stop getting angry, as long as they're not doing it in a very dangerous way, they haven't processed that event. They've been told to stop, right? Because as a parent, not many parents know, or at least I know, I was brought up and I was told to shut up and stop crying. You know, literally stop crying, because it was obviously hurting my parents probably, or my elder siblings. My siblings we've got like 16-year gap as well. So they couldn't process me crying, or my younger siblings. So I was always told to stop crying. So I never knew how to process emotions positively. So everything that happened in my life would just stack on top of that little cup that already had somewhat, fears and sadness in there, and then it just kept on stacking, losing dad. Actually, yeah, I had lost my grandma when I was about 5, and then lost my dad when I was 14. Lost her sister as well, in terms of she didn't die, but she left the house, and I didn't understand why she left. I was 10 years of age then. That was a loss for me, because she suddenly went and got married. I didn't know what was going on, and then mum passing away, and then 2 babies passing away when I was about 19, 20, 21 years old. So lots and lots of stacking on, and then mum going. So you could imagine, this is not just me, this is typically everyone. We all go through losses of different kind. They don't have to be people physically dying. There could be a loss of a friend as well, who has suddenly not, they've left, and you didn't have closure. You weren't ready for that loss. And then it's like stack, right? So then when you have to grieve, when someone's passed away, it could be, you were kind of like they were ill already, or it was unexpected. How do you process that healthily when all your life you've been told to stop crying? Don't cry too much. You're going to affect your body. Okay, and now I know typically, I don't know if you guys can relate to this. Let me know if you do. Just say yes, I can relate, then I know we're on the same boat here. When we cry and we've lost a loved one, the first 3 days of crying and moaning are warranted, typically, okay? Excuse me. But then how many times has a relative told you to stop crying? Like, don't cry, stop crying, don't cry. It's warranted. At the time of death, you can cry. But there's people that are around you that do it in good intention. They stop you from crying. That's when it stacks up again. Okay? And then there's the grief that should have been processed in the first few days of the loss, or even weeks. and depending on, you know, how you're doing it, has now been dragged on for years. And every wedding anniversary or wedding event or birthday party or, you know, any celebration is bringing up that, oh, my dad's not here, my parents not here, my brother's not here, or my sibling, whatever it is, it's not here. Because it hasn't been processed healthily. So the first steps you're going to be doing is a generic step that all coaches we do, is to remove the active negative emotions in the client's body and mind. So these are, if you are doing 10-minute therapy, you would be able to relate to this. If you do any other technique, use that technique. But you first have to get rid of this emotional cup that has been filled up so much that no matter what you say to the client, they will not take it. The mind rejects it. Any new strategy that is new to them, they will reject it, because there's emotions that are underneath that strategy that they've already got, and that will disregard your new strategy until you get rid of those negative emotions. Okay, so how many times have you given advice to somebody, they've never took it on? It's not because your advice is wrong for them, and I'm sure they know it's right, but because there's so much negative emotions attached to their current strategy, which is let's just cry and moan every year, on every occasion, every single week, every single month. I mean, I know somebody who mourns the date when they lost a parent, the date every single month, and that's hard. How do you move on from your life, in your life, and be empowered, and really empower being the daughter or the son or the relation or a friend of that amazing human being? So you see, I lost the main thing there, yeah, because there's so much emotion there, and I'm sure they know there's a better way of healing than that, than remembering and reigniting those emotions again and again every single month. You first get rid of the negative emotions generically. So you get rid of anger, sadness, hurt. No, it's anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. Okay, you get rid of those negative. So what you're doing there is you're really reducing that emotional glass. You're reducing that emotional glass. Now they'll be more open to the strategy. A lot of coaches go straight into, oh, you should do this, and you know, you should do this way, and it doesn't work. They just reject it. They may hold on to it for a few days or weeks. After that, they're back to the square one because you haven't got rid of their negative emotions. Step one is that, and you'll see a lot of easiness comes in. You know, you may see the client talk about it, about the loss of their loved one in a more empowered way. Not completely empowered yet, okay, depending on their situation. Now, because you've released the negative emotions that are trapped in the body from the root cause, all right, the root cause has to happen. They must go back to the first time they felt that negative emotion. Like I said to you, you know, when we're young, as children, we're typically told, stop crying, stop doing that, don't get angry, always be happy. That kind of thing has always been told to us. We don't know how to process emotions positively, so we have to go down back to the first time it happened, get the learnings, and then we feel empowered, and then the rest of the events also get healed as well. We process all those. The mind does it. We don't need to know how it does it, but it does it. So, and that's what I did first. I released all those negative emotions. Then I was able to feel more empowered about my mum's passing. Okay, and dad's as well. I think dad's passing was healed a lot later on for me, because it was really trapped. Like, it was so trapped. I was 14 when my dad passed away. And I was very unconscious at the time. It didn't feel like it was a problem then. It was only later on that became a problem, and I had to do the same steps. So the next step you would do is change their model of the world, right? You would do this linguistically now. What is their perception of life? What is their perception of relationships? So typically we think death is a bad thing. It's a really, really bad thing. Okay? I've always known that as I was in school, you know, I think I remember a lesson getting taught about death, that it's a major life event. Of course it is, when a loved one dies, but it was always classed as a bad thing. Now, when I look at it now, I'm done so much learning and growth personally in this situation. Death is a expectation. It's something we have to go through. We came into this world. We are going to leave this world. So what is your client's perception on death? Now we're going to come into it in a more spiritual way. Coaching is holistic. We don't just deal with the mind, we deal with the physical body as well. We deal with the soul as well. We deal with the spiritual part of us. And then we increase choices to the client. So now you're looking at what is the perception of death for the client. Is it a really bad thing? Like a really, 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 really bad thing? And then what emotion is attached to that perception? Then release that or those emotions as well. A lot of the times, emotions are also released linguistically if they're just minor. Now, we've released the major emotions in the first step. We've released the major emotions in the first step. You may have to dive in here a little bit. If there's trapped grief, you release grief from the root cause. If there's trapped something like abandonment, they might say, I feel abandoned, or I felt abandoned and I still feel abandoned when my dad went. You release that feeling of abandonment. Those are slightly more minor emotions. Not minor, but medium, you would say. And you could do the same technique, whatever technique you use, to release abandonment, grief, whatever they say, whatever words they use are the right words. Because that's how their mind is talking to them, their unconscious mind is talking to them. You release them from root cause. We want to get to a point where they think death is normal. Death is normal. Where they feel everyone has to die and there's no like anxiety attached to it that is unwarranted. And that they can, what's their internal rep? The second thing is what's their internal rep of relationships. So they lost their dad, their mum, their friend, whoever it is. Typically, why were they in their life in the first place? Get that internal representation, and if it's something outside of something like this, again, I'm being very generic here, I found this very empowering for myself and my clients, so I'm sharing this here with you as well. Every human being that's around us is there to grow us to be a better version of ourselves. I'm talking very generically here, no faith related, but it's very spiritual at the same time. I know my husband is there to teach me patience. I know my husband's there to teach me to let go, because those are the two things I typically lack in. I need to do more work in those. My mum was around. She taught me to give. She taught me to give. Okay? My dad taught me hard work. Like, you gotta work. Doesn't matter what's going on. You can work around it. Okay? So I picked up some learnings from my parents. I need to focus on that. They're not here anymore physically, but when they were here, they gave me some learnings that I did not take because I was so fixed on whatever they gave me, whatever that comfort was, whatever that was, calling them and having cooked meals, those surface things that were part of that relationship. But I didn't go deeper. So I need my client to go deeper. What did they really give you? What is my daughter giving me? Like, I'm learning so much from my eldest and my youngest that if they weren't around, they make me whole, right? Everyone around you gives you something that you did not have, okay? By default, you didn't have it. Now, like, for my husband, I could say I probably give him, I never thought about this, so I'm going to do it on the spot now. What do I give him? I guess I give him hard work. I'm pretty ambitious, and I pass that on to him because he is so laid back that he wouldn't move if I didn't give him that ambition, if I didn't instill in some that spark. Hey, you can do this, right? That motivation, because he's laid back, and I need some of that laid back because I go a bit too extreme. To the point where, not now, but I used to not even look after my health. So I used to just be work, because I saw a lot of that hard work come from my dad. He used to go to work, literally have a operation done on his toe, and then have it all bandaged, and then go to work the next day, maybe after a few days, I don't know, but very, very hard working and disciplined and caring for his brothers that he was, and there for his brothers as well. So, and there for his daughters, he loved his daughters. So all these things I picked up from my dad, but I was too attached to, oh, he's gone, right? Or my mum's gone. So what learnings did I need to pick up from my parents that I overlooked? So that in itself is very empowering itself. You'll always be able to process a physical loss, right? Because you're going higher and you're going beyond. You're going beyond the death. You're going into like, okay, so what did this person really give me? Like, what did they teach me for me to be a better person? So you got to look at your clients' perception about life, perception about relationships and people around them. Okay, somebody is teaching you something always. Even if now you want to just take put a pause if you're watching this on recording, just check in. Who in your family has taught you what you did not have naturally? Who in your friend circle has taught you something that you did not have naturally? Now I'm talking about your loved ones here. So check in on that. Change their perception. Now we are going into changing their, again, linguistically, what's the internal representation of death, what's the internal representation of their loved ones. Then you change that into empowerment. A lot of spiritual work comes in here. So they feel empowered. So all you do is take a client from feeling a victim to feel empowered. Oh wow, like I had such a amazing dad. And then they focus on the qualities of their dad. I'm sure they were already there with a parent or whoever it is that they've lost. But because their loss and their grief, the sadness was so strong, they didn't see the rest. They didn't see the learnings. They didn't see the goodness that they've took from their loved ones. Okay, you got to get to a point where you feel empowered. Oh my God, I took so much from my mom. I took so much good from my dad. Okay, now you obviously love them and care for them. Hence, you will find loads of things in that situation, even if, let's say, you lost a parent, and I'm going off a different situation here, or someone loved one, but they weren't always empowering you, you can always take a learning from them. Now, my mum wasn't 100% amazing. Like, there was so much in her that wasn't something I would take, but I could always reframe that. Like, one thing that my mum did, which I won't recommend anyone else do, was she would put her external family first and kind of neglect her own health. She would be so tired, but she would always be there for her external family, right? Now I would say, hey, do both. Look after your health and look after your external family. But no, she would go crazy working and neglect her physical health. Now I don't need to take that and put that on me. I can say, okay, keep that aside. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to do what my mum did, but I'm going to also look after my health, because if I look after my health, I'll be able to do more for my family, not just my external family, but I'll be able to do more for my immediate family as well. Okay, so you got to reframe some things. Okay, so we're doing the linguistic part. That is number 2 that you've got to do. Check in with their internal representation, their perception of life and relationships, right? Then number 3, have they done the practical steps? Okay, have they taken the practical steps that you think are somewhat common sense, but they can be missed? And if they're missed, they haven't done the process yet. So at the time of the death of the loved one, did they hug their other loved ones? Did they cry properly? And I mean proper cry, because a lot of the times what happens is, especially in the Asian, like South Asian community, we get so busy because we have to do the funeral straight away or as soon as possible. We get so busy with planning the funeral, talking to this person, talking to that person, and we forget to cry and hug the other people around us, the other relatives around us. Depending on who you've lost, obviously. Like when I lost my mum, I know my brothers were so busy organising the funeral because she was going to be taken abroad. I don't think they grieved properly in those days, rarely. And typical men are not supposed to cry. That's something else you would have to help your client to get through in stage 2. What's the internal perception on crying and releasing emotions as well. Number 3, again, practical steps. Do they need to cuddle their family members? Do they need to visit the resting place? What is it that they need to do? They need to also do these things to get full closure. And number 4 is just seeing how they go with their life events. Okay, how they anchored a negative emotion with life events. Now I've got a client who still feels the loss, the grief during certain times of the year when there's significant occasions. It could be birthdays, it could be weddings, anniversary maybe, or even Ramadan. You know, whatever festivals you guys celebrate, they could feel those loss of emotions just at those events. Then you would have to collapse that anchor that they've got, that emotion. As long as it's minor, you can use this. Like just slight feeling that, oh, okay, or, you know, Christmas is coming or Ramadan is coming, and I feel so sad that my dad or my mum is not here. You would have to change the emotion around that event or those events, minor emotions, and then put in empowered emotions there that, again, you may have to take them through the first 3 steps again, just slightly, just so they can process it. It's always about processing. This is just typical what I'm saying. Every time we haven't processed something at the time of the event, we have to process it at another time of the event, another time in our life. We always have to process it, otherwise it's gonna stay there. And everything a coach takes as unprocessed emotions and events is trauma, because it hasn't been processed. The mind is still stuck on sadness, heavy grief, anger, and it's stuck, and it hasn't been processed. It's almost like stuck like this, and it just keeps on living inside that box. And what you're doing as a coach is releasing it, getting them out of that triangle or prism or that box, because that's where they're stuck and they're living their emotions again and again. So everything that hasn't been processed, it could be lost, it could be anything that didn't get processed at the time, is considered as a trauma. So you just quickly take them through. You may have to just do this linguistically by then, or you may have to do the root cause depending on what emotion has come up. It might be a completely different emotion or name to it. Then you do that again, and then you change their perception of that event, so that every year when Eid comes or Ramadan comes, or you know, a religious festival type event comes or family event comes, they are empowered. They're remembering their loved one with empowerment, okay? And they are attaching positive, empowered emotions to these events. That's what you want to do. Even now, when I'm going through a not so good event, like let's just talk about this lockdown, you know, COVID-19. You know, we had a lot of fear. I experienced fear in the beginning, sadness, a little bit of hopelessness, but I allowed myself to process it. I didn't ignore it. I wasn't trying to be this superwoman with the face that's always happy. I was actually upset. I was releasing those emotions. I didn't do a live video for a week because I had to process it, and the live video didn't happen because I had cold sores all over here, and they're still sort of there, the marks are still there, but I had to make sure you know, I'm professional as well. I'm not coming live with a face full of cold sores. So my body reacted to that event, because we had to do a lot of changes. You know, we normally have weekly gatherings and monthly gatherings where we meditate, and can't see family. Hubby had to come home and stay home and not work, and all these things. So much uncertainty was happening, but I processed it. I didn't ignore it. Now, typically, years ago, I would have ignored it. I would have just said, okay, I'm fine, carried on with my day, and my unconscious mind would have been thinking about it, that, hey, you haven't processed this, you're feeling upset, you're feeling sad, you're feeling maybe fearful. What am I going to do with this? Right? And it just stays there, and it just builds up, and it gets worse and worse, because it's telling you to deal with it. And because you're busying yourself all day and every day with work, with music, with whatever you're doing, or talking on the phone. That was a big one for me. I just talk about it and not do anything about it. And it's still there. And then if another event happens, there's another one. You're stacking up negative emotions again, and you're filling up that emotional glass. So I processed it, allowed a week off, processed it, felt the fear, felt the hurt, the anger, whatever, uncertainty I felt, and then got the learnings and then felt empowered. Okay, so that has to happen. And what you're doing as a coach is you're taking your client through that stage very, very healthily, because the mind is reliving. You don't have to go physically to that event. You can relive it, not in the sense of reliving it, but to get the learnings, go to it and get the learnings, come back. Get the learnings, because it's still there. The mind records everything that you've experienced. So you're just taking your client from that place and putting them into empowerment. Okay, basically whatever I did, because I can do it now myself, because my glass isn't full now, it gets full, stuff gets into it and I'll get it out. Okay, but if your glass is so full in the beginning and a little bit goes into it, it goes crazy, too big. It gets overflowed, and that's when behaviours like panic buying starts happening. That's when, I don't know, swearing at the Prime Minister starts happening, I don't know, or Bill Gates or whoever, blaming people, right, whatever. The feelings erupt, hate and trolls start happening because of that. People being kind can't happen if you're not kind inside. Right, we went through this phase this year of 2020 where we started it off be kind to others, but then that disappeared when people started to feel panicky and fearful of the COVID-19, and they started trolling people's social media accounts. Now, I'm not saying what people are doing is right or wrong, but I'm saying that you don't need to emotionally get involved, negative emotionally, because if you're really fearful of what's going on, it's going to lower your immune system anyway. So stepping back from everything is important. So going back to it, we just have to take them where they are, put them where they feel they need to be to feel empowered all the time. So it's the same cycle. Again, this will be attached to a blog post, and you will get more on this, just to follow the steps yourself or take your client through those steps. I do have a program that I help coaches with to really get in deal with this, because it may be that you've got, as a coach, if the coach hasn't healed herself or himself, they won't be able to heal the client. So this is why the program is there to help the coach overcome their own personal sort of obstacles, shall I say, or emotional blocks, so they can give that empowerment to their clients as well. And that's called the Outstanding Coach. I don't know, I felt it was really needed, where there's a place where a coach can become the outstanding coach through obviously the marketing and sales techniques that we need as a coach, and also the personal breakthroughs as well. Both have to be aligned together. So if you do want more information on that, you can definitely reach out to me, and I will catch you in the next video.